If you've browsed Twitch over the past year or two, odds are you've heard of Mark Caedrel Lamont. Currently one of the fastest growing English streamers, Caedrel has amassed a reputation of being an extremely intelligent League of Legends co-streamer and analyst, while also starting his own Tier 2 European Professional League team. More famously though, he was also a former professional player himself, with one of the most legendary mechanical misplays in League history. Even now that he's retired, it's clear that he still feels the itch to play and compete. So at the end of every year, Caedrel streams a challenger climb as he attempts to prove he still got it. But what stands out to me the most is all the narratives that have formed around how League of Legends matchmaking works, by using his account as an example, and how this reflects a deeply flawed understanding of general team-based matchmaking systems. The reason many people are quick to complain about Riot Games' matchmaking system is because of the opacity behind LP delta. If you've ever played ranked yourself, you're probably no stranger running into deltas like plus 18 for a win and minus 23 for a loss. With these steps, you need a 56% win rate just to stay at the same rank. And at that point, it feels like the algorithm is literally designed to keep you from advancing, right? Well, to explain how League's matchmaking system works, let's back up and first go over standard-based rating systems, like chess. Generally, chess is one of the games considered to be 100% skill-based. There are no luck factors, and in theory, anyone can become one of the greats with enough training, time, and effort. But how exactly does a system like chess.com pair you against a fair opponent, and how does it know how much to reward or penalize you? A common answer is through your elo, but what does that actually mean? Elo isn't just how good you are. Instead, it's a metric used for that specific game based on both players' elos. The matchmaking system will then calculate the probability you'll win against that specific player. For example, someone who is 100 elo points higher than you is expected to win roughly 64% of the time, while someone who is 200 elo points higher than you is expected to win around 75% of games. And logically, this makes sense. No one is infallible, but obviously games are less likely to flip if the skill difference is wider. If the lower rated player does ever win, they'll also get a bonus amount of points since they weren't expected to, and vice versa, with this bonus also scaling with the skill gap. So how does this apply to team-based matchmaking? Well, the real reason why League's matchmaking scheme is so unintuitive is because the metric by which games actually matches you is not actually the ranking you see. Every League account has the listed LP and rank, but also a hidden metric called matchmaking rating, or MMR for short. LP obviously determines what division you're placed in, but it has zero impact on how your teammates are chosen. This is also why when you play non-ranked games, it might feel like you're running into absurdly good players. People who only grind ranked will increase their LP without ever actually touching their unranked MMR, meaning the game thinks that they're worse than they actually are. Then, when you lose and you check their account, it appears that the system is designed to keep you down, whereas in reality, they simply haven't played enough games in that format. And this is the key insight. Matchmaking algorithms are never about the short term, but about the long term. To maintain fairness for the general majority of the player base who have played plenty of ranked games, Riot is willing to sacrifice a temporary amount of short-term games fairness. Going back to our example with Caedrel, we can see this bright as day. His streamer account from Riot started with an Emerald rank, but likely a Master's MMR, and his initial deltas were hugely positive, plus 30 and minus 10. The algorithm realized rather quickly that he didn't belong in the lower elos and essentially slingshotted him out. If it feels unfair, you also have to remember that there was a 50% chance that he was on either team, so it wasn't like the matchmaking algorithm was out to get any one particular opponent either. Then, look at what happens when he plateaus. His win rate decelerates, and his losses skyrocket and his gains plummet. Note that it is incredibly misleading to view win rate as an overall statistic. You have to look at win rate over the past couple games instead of the account's lifetime, since it would obviously be inflated with Caedrel stomping his way through Emerald. At this point, he was actually on a loss streak, causing the matchmaking algorithm to believe that its initial estimate was actually way overshot and his MMR tanked accordingly. As a result, his later wins only got him back to a 50% win rate, which indirectly confirms to the algorithm that he really was that skill level, causing the LP gains to skew negatively. Now hearing this, you might understandably be worried. If one bad stretch digs you in a hole, how many games does it get to at least re-normalize those LP gains? With Caedrel, it took around 189. A large amount, absolutely. But think about it like this. At the beginning of your account, there's so much uncertainty around where you should be. A theoretical Grandmaster player shouldn't be losing in Diamond, so losses will dramatically tank your MMR more than wins will gain them. Unfortunately, this plays into another common narrative around matchmaking: loser's queue. If the algorithm really thinks you deserve to be in a lower elo, how are you supposed to win? The answer to this is honestly more straightforward, and I think it's because the player base carries too much of an ego. The reality is that a 50% win rate is literally evidence that the system is working. Think back to the example of chess. In theory, if you constantly played people at the same level as you, then you'd expect to have a 50% win rate, not counting draws. Yet, for some reason, generalizing this to team games is so hard for individuals. It would be absurd to say that players in the lower ranks should be expected to have less than a 50% win rate, and that those in the higher ranks should be close to a 100% win rate, since every game by definition has a winner and a loser. We can see this most clearly if we just simulate games. Imagine high elo league as around 2000 chess rating, mid elo as around the 1500s, and low elo as around 1000. Obviously across brackets, these matchups wouldn't be even, but within brackets, they'd be expected to be around 50-50. So understanding this, the real concern you should be asking yourself is, how can I avoid these long streaks of losses? The answer is that you can't really. Let's assume that you first have a 50% win rate. In that case, over the long run, what is the distribution of the streaks of wins and losses you might see in your games? Well, your second game has a 50% chance of being the same result as the first game. Then your third game has a 50% chance of being the same as the second, and the fourth with the third, and so on and so forth. Each subsequent game has a 50% chance of maintaining the streak, so a streak of k wins or k losses in a row occurs with probability 1/2 to the power of k. If we write a basic Python script, we can actually see that within a simulation of 100 coin flips, there are multiple occurrences of streaks being longer than 4 games in a row, something that probably isn't new to any League player. And one last thing I haven't mentioned so far is that everything we've talked about until now has assuming that every game is independent of the rest, i.e. winning or losing one game has no bearing on the next game. But unfortunately, this definitely isn't true in the real world, and it definitely swings in the negative direction. Tilt and fatigue are major factors which can dramatically degrade your ability to play well below your given MMR. If you catch yourself in these situations, you have to remember that League is a zero-sum game. Whenever you chose to queue up, a loss isn't just around minus 25 LP. It actually means you have to win one more game just to get back where you started. So stop playing ranked when you're angry or tired. If you ever choose to press accept, play with a 100% intention to win. And make sure to take breaks too. Even the pros at the World Championships only play at most 5 games a day. So why on earth would a 10-game marathon ever be good for your mental or mechanics? At the end of the day, team-based matchmaking systems, like in League, often serve a user base in the size of millions. Companies like Riot are smart enough to realize that if the algorithm was actually unfair, no one would ever play. And yet, season after season, the same players consistently climb while others consistently plateau. What is happening is much less dramatic, but far more uncomfortable. Variance exists, streaks are inevitable, and ego fills in the gaps with conspiracy. When things go well, we credit improvement. But when things go poorly, we externalize blame. If you're better than your current rank, the system will eventually reflect that. And if you're not climbing, the uncomfortable truth is that the matchmaking system is probably doing its job exactly as intended. And honestly, that's a good thing, because it means that improvement actually is possible. Not by praying for better teammates, but by playing fewer games, playing them better, and knowing when to walk away. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.